Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Michelle Shelton. I'm a registered dietitian and certified coach. And in this channel, I teach people strategies to reconnect to their inner wisdom and lead a life of health and well-being from that connection to self and from that connection to that natural intuition and wisdom inside of themselves. And so with that, today, what I want to do is teach you one important step in that journey, which is to make peace with food. And you may have noticed, you may have experienced and felt this. I have certainly felt it at different times in my life. We have a very conflicted relationship with food in our culture, right? And we hear all kinds of messages about foods that you should eat and foods that you shouldn't eat and what's healthy and what's unhealthy and what's good and what's bad. And it creates a lot of stress and anxiety around eating, right? Because we worry about these foods that we enjoy, but we are worried that maybe we shouldn't be eating them, or we hear or we believe that we shouldn't be eating them, right? We come into this space of sort of good food versus bad food. And maybe it's not those overt labels that we put, but we do sort of hold these beliefs of I shouldn't eat that. That food isn't healthy for me, or all kinds of very subtle messages that we hear. And what that leads to is we hold these beliefs and then we eat those foods because they're part of our cultural experiences or social experiences, or we just like them, right? We grow up, they're comfort foods, right? There's all kinds of reasons why we eat. So we eat these foods and then it creates a little bit of dissonance inside of us, right? Where we believe that we shouldn't eat it, that it's bad for us. And here we find ourselves eating it. And now we have this dissonance inside, right? What do we do with that? And there are three typical ways that I see people go with that sort of belief and that dissonance. The first one is to a place of guilt and shame, which then leads to disconnection and sort of a disconnected eating experience. And so what that might sound like is, well, I've already messed up. I may as well just let this train roll, right? I may as well just give up. I'm discouraged. I messed up. I just don't have enough self-control. It's just too hard. I'm never going to be healthy, right? You kind of go into this path of sort of discouragement and shame and guilt, which then typically leads to more disconnection because those aren't great. We don't love feeling that way, right? And so that leads to more disconnection. And when you eat from a place of disconnection, you generally will eat more than you wanted, more than you desire, and more than you are really even enjoying. That's not helpful, right? The second place that we often go is to a place of rebellion, right? And you've probably experienced this. I certainly have. Most people have experienced this when there's a lot of sort of restriction and that messaging around you shouldn't eat that, that's bad. And we kind of get tired of that. We get to a point where we're like, I just forget it. Forget the diet. I'm tired of these rules. I just want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy life. I want to be free, right? All of those messages, if you can hear that track, right, in your head when you've been in those places, right? Just forget it. This isn't worth it. I just want to enjoy life, right? And then we eat that food from kind of this place of rebellion. And again, in that rebellion, you're not tuning into your body. You're not noticing what you're enjoying and what you need. It's just sort of this reckless abandon pushback. I'm tired of the rules, right? I kind of want to break the rules at this point, right? And in that place of wanting to break the rules, you're not really connecting in with yourself. That's where the rebellious energy goes. And then the third really common place that we go is kind of this place of like a loud cheat day, right? Like I know I shouldn't eat this, but this is kind of a cheat day for me, so I'm going to eat it. And what we see there is sort of an energy of, well, I better eat it while I can get it, because this is my cheat moment. It's not going to be allowed tomorrow or later today or in a week. It's allowed right now. So I've got to eat it while I can get it. And so now we're eating it because of that sort of resistance to the restriction, right? Eat it while I can get it because it's that scarcity. And again, as you can see, there's a clear pattern here, right? All of these energies are driving us to eat for reasons that are sort of a pushback against the guilt and the shame or the rebellion or the restriction. None of them come from a place of attunement. So what I want to invite you to do is just notice these three different maybe thought processes or energies when they enter your system, right? As you eat and you notice, right? Eating a food that you believe is not good for you. And then where do you go, right? Just start to notice your thought process. And then as you noticing is one of the most important things you can do. And as you notice it, you can sort of pause and invite that part of you to give you a little bit of space, right? To maybe slow it down a little bit, separate a little bit from you so that you can come back to that place of attunement, right? To release a little bit of the guilt and shame, release some of the rebellion, even release the restriction, right? And come back to a place of attunement and start to notice. And what's really cool is that as you start to attune to yourself, there's a natural arc that when you begin eating a food, because you're hungry, because it's a new flavor that you haven't been eating, even if you know the flavor, right? You haven't been eating it for a while. So it's new in that moment, you're hungry, and in that place, it tastes the very best. That's, whatever that food is, if it's your favorite dinner, maybe it's a steak, maybe it's grilled chicken, maybe it's spaghetti, maybe it's a fudgy brownie, whatever it is. When you're hungry, and in that moment of sort of like that lowest familiarity of that flavor, you begin eating it and the enjoyment is the highest. And then as your fullness starts to rise and your familiarity with that flavor in that moment, again, this is not about it being a new food. It's just that you haven't eaten it for a while, right? It's new in that moment and that familiarity of the flavor increases. You'll start to notice the satisfaction starts to drop as you begin to eat several bites and more, and it starts to sort of plateau. And then as you continue to eat, the enjoyment of it actually starts to drop. That's your body's natural signal. It's a natural way of telling you that you've had enough and that you can stop. That's what you want to tune into. And I promise you, any food that you eat has that natural arc. Whether it's a food that you sort of feel neutral about or a food that you love and you feel like you could eat 10 servings of it, right? For me, it's like a fudgy brownie. That would be like, oh, I could eat this any time of day at any amount. Even those foods, you will notice there is a natural arc and it's well before 10 servings. It's usually a pretty normal, moderate, reasonable portion of that food. That's what we're looking for to be that guide, to be that stop point. So again, I just want to invite you to start to notice these responses that you have inside of you. Give yourself a little space. See if you can separate from those energies a little bit, from the restriction, the guilt, the rebellion, all of those things, and start to tune in and notice, where's that natural point where I've had enough of this food? We'll have a separate video where we go more into the satisfaction factor deeper, and we'll talk a little bit more about that process, but just start to notice at this stage those different energies, those different reactions that you have to eating, and see if you can create, again, it's all about creating space in your system, and that's where you have that opportunity for choice and that opportunity for reconnection into your inner wisdom. So thank you so much for being here. Please, if you have any questions or comments, enter them into the comments section. Don't forget to hit subscribe and stay tuned for more strategies on how you can reconnect to your inner wisdom. I'll see you in the next video.